In today's Singapore, women hold their own as equals, leaving their mark in almost every field. 200 years ago, the opposite was so, as social restrictions born of gender stereotyping made women second-class citizens.
Poor families would happily sell their girls as slaves.
Girls at the time did not have access to formal education, didn't have access to employment.
Her husband's self-indulgence has ignited Lee's fighting spirit. She won't stand for his polygamous games, but she has no vision of how to combat them until she meets a new arrival from India. Shirin Fozdar, born in Bombay, India in 1905, is of Persian descent. Since age 17, she has been agitating for women's rights, an outgrowth of her faith.
Shirin Fozdar was, first and foremost, a member of the Baha'i Faith. One of the tenets of the Baha'i Faith is the equality of the status of men and women. So Mrs. Fozdar believed that in fighting for the rights of women, you are actually, in a way, promoting the principles of the Baha'i Faith.
One of it was, if the family only has enough resources to educate the children, it must first go to the girls. I thought that was amazing principle because the belief is that they are the generators of the next generation. So educate the girls, the family will be okay.
In 1950, Shirin and husband Kodadad, a doctor, leave Bombay for Singapore to spread the word about Baha'ism.
At the same time, she took one of the principles or teachings of the Baha'i Faith, and that was one man, one wife at that time. Because there was no law, it was still a British colony, and the British left the Chinese to do, if they want 5 wives or 6 wives, they're rich. She was offended that how can this man, this old Lao Pana, they call that Lao Pana, bring all these pretty girls. First, 6 wives, 7 wives, and sometimes not up to, I think they have more up to 7 wives.
Singapore is rife with polygamy. Among Malays, 6 marriages in 10 end in divorce, thanks in part to lax laws that favor men. This situation appalls Shirin, as does the lack of legal protections for women and girls. Shirin has an idea, but she needs allies. In November 1951, she hosts 20 women, including Lee, at her home in Tanjong Katong. Out of this session emerges a group dedicated to reform aimed at women, an approach until now given short shrift in Singapore.
Women's group at that time were into charitable work, were into fundraising, were into social activities, and they were not into moving for legislation or having international affiliation with international groups abroad, or giving fiery public speeches, or lobbying with politicians. It was just beyond her ken. So when Mrs. Fozdar came, this opened a whole new world for her. So she said that we will have an organization which will have membership from all the women's organization, because as one voice united, we will be strong and we will change laws. Changing the laws. This is the first time women's group have never tried to change laws before.
In 1952, the Singapore Council of Women forms officially. Shirin Fozdar is secretary. Mrs. George Lee is president. The association soon has 800 members from all over Singapore.
One man, one wife was their motto, was their main motto from the very beginning. That was the slogan they adopted.
If women are kept in subjection then, to that extent, the country is considered backward, What greatness can we expect for this country where, in every home, the women live in a state of constant fear of being deprived of marital security and everything that goes to make a happy family?
I met Shirin in the 1980s, when she was in her 80s. She was giving a talk on women's rights. She was still talking about women's rights in the 1980s. And I was amazed because I have never seen such a erudite and inspiring speaker. She said that, well, when I was about 16 years old, my teacher asked me to give a talk on stage. And so I had prepared a very good talk to give on stage. But there was a blackout when I was just about to look at my notes when all the lights went out. There was a silence. She just had to talk. So she began to speak. And lo and behold, she was able to give the talk in the dark without looking at the notes. And she said that, well, everybody can speak well. It's just that you have to believe what you believe. And you have to speak from your heart.
Shirin's passionate campaign for monogamy has men in an uproar, so much so that she resorts to trickery.
She told me that she would wake up very early in the morning, quickly go to the newspaper, and there it was, as expected. They would carry a little article on her, and she would remove the entire centerfold page so that when the husband reads the newspaper, he wouldn't know that there was pages missing, you know.
Busybody, talking about one man, one wife. They will tell her husband, the men, all the rich men with the wives and all that, we are hurt, If I see her, I'll kick her backside. No. They all said in anonymous letter, not to the Straits Times. And she will laugh, Rosie, when I see this, it makes my laugh. It's my, really, I enjoy it now. What they say, okay, let them say they want to kill me and send me back to India, or so what? She said, never mind, let them, and she carried on and on.
The Singapore government recently announced that it will introduce a bill which will make polygamy illegal for all except Muslims. The only women's organisation in Singapore which fought for this was the Singapore Council of Women, whose secretary, Mrs. Shirin Fozdar, answered our questions. Mrs. Fozdar, what are the worst features of polygamy here in Singapore?
The worst features would be that just as there is maldistribution of wealth in this country, there would be maldistribution of women also. Because so far, the women are just half the population. It's not a question that women are more in number than men. And therefore, if some men go in for half a dozen wives, it means the others don't get one wife also. And this is encouraging women to marry the rich people, and the poor men then cannot get a wife. And also these rich men sometimes are rich, and then at other times suddenly they become poor, and these extra wives and their children are a burden on the social welfare department.
Do you feel that the government's proposals go far enough?
Yes, because they have said that they will legislate for monogamous marriages, but it would not be applicable to the Muslims on grounds of religion. Although it will be going far enough for other communities, we cannot understand why the poor Malay women should be excluded, and it would not be fair and just that they too, being citizens of this country, should not be covered by such security.
Do you feel that it will be possible to implement these proposals, particularly so far as the men are concerned?
I think that will be quite possible because since the last 6 years, the Singapore Council of Women has been fighting for the rights of women in this particular field, and our slogan has been one man, one wife, and the awakening has already been created. And I don't think there will be any opposition to it because people do realize that if a country has got to be great, then half the population of the country consisting of women cannot be suppressed. and therefore they are prepared, I think, to give women their rights. Only the Muslims also must come forward and accept this legislation if they as a community want to advance.
The Shirin Fozdar program was first started by Association of Women for Action and Research, which was then institutionalized under SMU in 2009 as a Shirin Fozdar program to educate, train and provide capacity building to the women of the community.
I taught and did research in Hong Kong University and the National University of Singapore for 16 years. I owed my turning point from academia to business to Shirin Fozdar. In my eyes, she was a humanist, transcending time, cultures, and place. My family had a special relationship with the Fostars. My late father-in-law was a supporter of the educational programs started by Mrs. Shirin Fozdar in Yasathon, an impoverished northeast province of Thailand. Her aim was to equip these young girls with vocational skills so that they could be independent. She was 81 years old when we first met in Bangkok.